I'm Danny Walsh, Bloomfield Township Supervisor, and thank you for joining me on this Next in Focus podcast. Today I have Lori Swanson. She's with MDOT, and she is the Oakland Transportation Service Center Manager. So Lori, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. A lot of people aren't aware that townships don't own roads. So that's something, even as a resident, I've lived here my whole life, I didn't know till I became a trustee. So we've dealt a lot with neighbors about the road commission for Oakland County, but a lot don't realize MDOT actually owns and maintains some of our roads. Do you want to highlight some of the ones that you're responsible for in our area?
Sure. MDOT generally will own roads that start with a US, an M, an I, so our interstates, that sort of thing. So in Bloomfield Township, we own Telegraph, we own Square Lake Road, parts of Square Lake Road from Telegraph to I-75. And we own Woodward, but those are mainly the big ones in your area.
Right. Those are definitely our bigger roads.
Yes.
So, and then how about yourself? How did you get involved with MDOT? What's your history?
Well, I went to Michigan State University and I got my
I won't hold that against you.
Go green. And I got my bachelor's and my master's there in civil engineering. And then I went into consulting and did a lot of traffic engineering work. And then I have been with the state for almost 20 years.
Wow.
Doing road design. I was in construction, and now I'm the manager for Oakland.
Well, and I can say that my experience with you has been very positive because I appreciate that you listen and talk and try and find the best route for everybody involved. So I personally am very thankful for that.
Ah, good.
Because sometimes, when we hear of state agencies, you think, oh, don't bother, they're not going to talk. And you all came to the table. It was because we are a little different in that we're very residential. We are 94% residential, 6%. Although we're on these large roads that in any other municipality might not have that much residential. So sometimes ours can be a little prickly to deal with in that what might seem normal elsewhere is strange when you have all these people. So I do appreciate how you and your team have worked with us to make some changes and edits, and we're all kind of working together on those.
Yeah, we always try to foster a teaming relationship with our local agencies. I mean, we can't get things done unless we're a partner together on this. So
yeah, and
we felt bad when we had that public meeting. I don't think that we conveyed the message right, that we weren't telling your residents that we were going to remove it. We wanted their input, and they gave it to us.
They do get it. Yeah, we always say, if you want an idea or an opinion, we will give it.
Hey, and that was great because we were like, okay, that was the wrong one. And we, did a 360 and headed in a different direction,
But that's where the respect came from, is you did, and it wasn't even that it took a long time. I mean, that night at that event, some of your staff came up to me and said, obviously, we're going to need to meet.
Yeah.
Let's talk tomorrow and set up some information. And I know that part of that was also with funding. There's not enough funding to fix all these roads, whether it's state roads or the county roads. Like for here as township residents, we have to pay to fix our own county roads through SADs in the neighborhoods because there's just no funding.
Right.
So I also appreciate that you and your team came when we thought, okay, if this is funding, how can we help? So we brought in some of our state and federal legislatures who were like, you all can give them some money. So that kind of fostering too, to see that our current legislature is interested in helping was also a really pleasant surprise.
Yes.
So for me, although this may have started as a rough patch, I personally enjoyed seeing everyone coming together to fix it. And to me, that's uplifting because having a partnership is the way that we'll be able to always work forward. Because especially on a project like this, we are able to piggyback on each other. So we could even go through, what you'll be doing on Square Lake. And ours is really quick. I can just say that since you're already opening up the roads, we're kind of doing the economy of scale of let's go ahead and do some water sewer work. So we'll be out there lining some of our sewers, doing some fixes, so that we won't destroy the beautiful road that you're going to put in a few years. But do you want to highlight some of the Square Lake project, or where we started, where you're going?
Sure. Well, we're obviously totally reconstructing that pavement. We've been limping it along for a number of years, just waiting for funding to be available. And so we're going to be reconstructing it basically from the east side of Woodward to Updike, kind of jumping over Updike, and then the piece that was left from Updike to where they rebuilt I-75 connector back in 2018, 2019. So that will be doing all new curb and gutter. We're doing, we're basically taking everything out. And we always, whenever we do a total reconstruct, we come to the community and say, now's your chance.
Right.
Like you said, we're going to have the pavement open. You can come in under our maintaining traffic. It saves the township money. Come in and do your work while we're doing ours. And so that's always a bonus when, you're set up to do that as well.
Right. And that's that open line of communication that's really helpful, because it may not have been a project that we were thinking of doing this year, but we knew it was in the next few years. So why not move some things around so that we can make it easier on residents too? And also, like you said, save some money, because we don't have to pay for the traffic and all of that. So.
And you don't have to pay to put the pavement back or any of that stuff. We'll take care of that. So the project is scheduled to let later this fall, early winter. And then they'll be out there next year reconstructing it. It should be one season. One thing, just, when we were talking about that ramp, we decided, obviously, not to remove it. We do want to improve it because the weave distance is less than ideal. And even though we haven't seen a crash problem, and hopefully we don't, it's just, it's not to our standard, and we wanted to improve it. So hopefully we don't end up having a safety problem out there. Perfect. And so the idea was kind of take those two ramps and shift them to the west. Once we got into looking at it, we felt that it would be best to just repave them right now. So we're not even going to reconstruct them, because we don't want to spend that kind of money to reconstruct them in their existing location. We're just going to cap them with asphalt and look to do a safety project later and still shift them down. But we just felt with all the environmental issues, we would be rushing to get it done and still maintain our letting date and be in construction next year. So we're just like, we're going to do this right. We're going to just separate it out and come back and do it. So we'll probably do this project, and then maybe in the next couple of years, reconstruct those ramps.
And that's something that some may not know too, is there is a wetland there. So when you say environmental, that's another thing. You never know how residents will, which option they're going to want too, of would they be interested when we were talking about moving it. And surprisingly, everyone said, yep, we're okay with it. But that does mean you have to deal with Eagle and some of the other environmental agencies to make sure it's done right.
Yeah, so and just, the design is a little bit more challenging when you go through a bog versus, normal soil. So, we just want to make sure that we're designing it correctly. We're taking our time. And as I said, it's not an issue right now, and we don't want it to be, and it may never be an issue, but we just want to make sure we're looking at safety, and we'll vet everything out.
Right. And you've mentioned a term, and I personally, I use a lot of acronyms, and I've learned I have to explain. We all talk. Sorry. So do you want to explain what a letting day is?
Oh, yeah. The letting day is when the plans are ready. It's been advertised for contractors to solicit their bids. And then I think the letting date for this is like early October, but that is the date that they submit their bids, and we open the bids, and we find out who is the low bid. Yeah.
So that's the day that the bids come in and they get approved. And then the actual construction date, like you said, would be starting the next year.
Yes, it'll start, generally, we start March.
Okay. Yeah. And then you're going to be doing curb and gutter and such. So about I know that if this was not a residential area, you could do nights and weekends, you could do this as fast as you can, and you have offered, and I want to give, again, the partnership of, you have offered to do nights and weekends to make this go faster. With the residences around, we have asked if we could maybe not do the nights and all the nights, but we do have to also let our residents know there's going to be some extended hours. So we don't typically go past 6. We're going to be letting you go till 8 o'clock at night. So just to make sure the residents know that's going to be changing a little bit. And then also, we don't normally ever have Sunday construction. And in order to speed this process up, which you had suggested, weekends would help. We're going to have at least 4 or possibly a few more weekends where Saturday, Sunday will go a little longer and allow Sunday as well.
Yeah, I mean, as much time as we can get just speeds the whole process up. Yeah. And when we're doing the actual reconstruct, the payment's gone anyways, you know, on a lot of it. And so letting us work the inconvenience is already there because the pavement is gone. Although we'll be maintaining 1 lane in each direction. Most of the time, I'm not 100% sure on all the MOT for the reconstruct part. Now, when we talk about this year's project on Square Lake from Woodward to Telegraph, now that one is a little different because that's a resurfacing project. And that one, we appreciate the extended hours that you're giving us. We'll be pulling barrels back, pulling them out, you know, I mean, shutting different lanes. You can pretty much guarantee we'll probably have a single lane closure almost all the time while we do a lot of the sidewalk work and ADA ramps and that sort of thing. So, two different animals.
Right. And I know a lot of people get frustrated when we have construction, but we just got to remember there will be a beautiful road after, though. So that small time of inconvenience pays off with years worth of better roads, better for our cars. So that's something that, although it is definitely going to be a tough thing for everybody who commutes, in the long run, it's important to just remember we're getting a brand new road from the experts to make sure it's right. So I appreciate, like I said, we'll make sure to let all of you know and remind you on Sundays. But we appreciate that you're willing to come out and do that as well to make it go a little faster for the residents.
Yes. So I think both projects will be good. This year's project, like I said, is resurfacing and then putting in the path or the sidewalk work. And so that one we were looking at starting after the Dream Cruise. We're working with a contractor now to get started sooner, so we can do a lot of the work while the kids are out of school. Okay. And we're not impacting, bus routes for the schools and that sort of thing. And traffic tends to be a little bit lighter in the summer than it is in the school year and too. So we're hoping we can get started sooner than later. So we'll be letting the township know as soon as we know from the contractor.
Perfect. And how does MDOT pick? Like, you have a lot of roads. The state is, the fix the damn roads has been a thing for a while. How do you pick projects? Because we are really lucky. I know Michigan's known for, we don't have the tolls, we don't have the funding the way some others do. So there are some areas but when we think about Telegraph and all the traffic that we have coming up there, it's still in really good shape. And then you have Woodward that's been improved. So we are pretty lucky with you finishing Square Lake. Our area is going to be pretty strong.
Yes.
And so we are very lucky. I have to remember to say, because I have driven through others, we make jokes. You can tell when you leave our area versus others. How does MDOT choose or pick? Is it based on size or scale? Or how do you, when you look at this whole state, how do you pick your projects?
Well, for the metro region, the 4 TSCs, there's Macomb, Oakland, Taylor, and Detroit. We come together every year. We have a call for projects process. And so we look at basically condition for our R&R, rehab and rehabilitation pot of money. That's our big jobs where we either reconstruct or we rehabilitate the existing pavement. So we also have a capital preventative maintenance program, which kind of does like Square Lake Road from Woodward to Telegraph is a CPM. which is just doing an overlay. We're getting, another 7 to 10 years out of it, just kind of keeping it maintained until we have funding in the future to do a big reconstruct. But, what we do is we look at condition, we prioritize based on what pot of money we think we should use and the needs. And then the region puts together its priority list, and wherever we rank everything. We have a big van tour. We look at everything every year. And then we come up with what we're going to put in the 5-year program for Metro.
Okay.
So we're given a pot of money every year, and we just divvy things up. So, okay. But it's based on condition.
And this one might be out of the scope, I'm not sure, but I'm a techie person, so I love my apps.
Okay.
Is MDOT ever interested, or have there been talks about having an MDOT, kind of like Waze or Google Maps? We're so entrenched where it goes through CarPlay now, to have the direct information from MDOT.
Well,
do you link with one already, or is there one coming? Or?
Well, we have Mi Drive. So it's our website where you can go on, you can look out of our cameras and you can see our freeways, or wherever we have cameras, you can see like the road conditions. It also will show where construction is. And a lot of that's already in, obviously not the camera part, but the, Google Maps will show.
It does feed into them.
Yeah,
okay.
Where the construction is and where there's been incidents or, different types of backups and things like that. But we do have Mi Drive that you can look at as well.
Great, because I do love Waze. It's pretty nice. I turn it on
I.
even if I know where I'm going, just to remember. But it is nice to know that all that feeds in there too. Mm-hmm. And I know sometimes we'll put like, construction here, get your 6 points for making a map edit. Mm-hmm. What else is coming with them? Are all of our roads going to be now pretty set for a while? Are you thinking maybe 10 years or later we might come back? Or how does a community get evaluated that way?
Well, as far as Bloomfield Township, the next project that's on our radar would be Woodward.
Okay.
And I know that's kind of on your outer fringes, but that's becoming a higher priority. Right. We're working with all the communities along Woodward, from basically the river in Detroit all the way through Pontiac, and coming up with a corridor plan. It's just in its starting stages right now. And so once we get that and we kind of understand where Woodward's going to go from here, I know the communities have a lot of ideas about multimodal use and that sort of thing, then we'll be programming projects for Woodward as we get money, and doing a lot of more reconstruct work or heavier, bigger rehabilitation work this go round. It's old pavement, and the last time we've done work on that up towards like Pontiac and Bloomfield Hills, it's been
the township
close
area.
In the township area. It's been close to 20 years, so it's time for some more work. So that's probably about the only, other than the next couple of years with Square Lake, that I can see in the near future, because Telegraph, was done not too many years ago.
Right.
So it's looking good right now.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned, so a lot of people in the area don't fully understand where Bloomfield Township is the larger one, and kind of our donut hole is what I like to call the Bloomfield Hills, is most people think that Woodward is Bloomfield Hills, but it's mostly the township. And so it goes Birmingham, Bloomfield Township, a little bit of Bloomfield Hills, and then the township. So although MDOT reaches out to us on discussions, the locals around us have no idea the difference between Bloomfield Hills and Bloomfield Township. Oh. So we found out that some things were being talked about. We're like, whoa, that's us.
Yes.
So it's amazing when you have similar, or sometimes we'll get West Bloomfield, and people call to complain about Orchard Lake. I'm like, I'm sorry, that's West Bloomfield. So having all the names, it is kind of strange the way it cuts in and out, that I was brought into a conversation thanks to MDOT knowing about our partnership, of saying like, hey, we're talking about this project. It was in 21. where apparently the others had been talking, not realizing we are on Woodward, and they were talking to Bloomfield Hills instead.
Oh, gotcha.
So it was MDOT who brought us in. So that's why I'm saying us having the strong partnership helps, that when others may not know the difference between Bloomfield Township and Bloomfield Hills, you all did, and you brought us in.
Yeah.
So that was
also,
appreciative.
Too, when, we're working with another community, we consider, like, let's say we're working with Pontiac, you would still be a stakeholder. Right. Like, we would want to make sure that you're aware when we're doing the Woodward Loop project, right. Kind of where we are with, different kinds of maintaining traffic scenarios and that sort of thing in the field, because it affects your residents.
Right.
So.
It definitely does, and I appreciate that. In fact, when we met to talk about the Square Lake project, I had reached out also to Auburn Hills, because, you end up having these little pockets where it's like our pocket, and he said, no, they just told me about that too, so we're okay. So it's kind of nice to know that you are reaching out to the ones around too, saying, although this is right here, and there was one conversation too that one of the surrounding communities said, well, it's okay because it's not in my area. I said, what street do you take to get home every day?
Right.
And he said, oh, that's right. I do go on there. I said, just because it's not in your township or your city doesn't mean it doesn't affect you and your residents. Right. So it is good that you see it in a more global area than just who's right next to it.
Oh, sure. And then when we also do the projects, we sign globally too. So we're letting people know when they're north and south on 75, you might not want to take Square Lake, go up to 59 or whatever, So we sign and try and catch people, before they get off on Square Lake or whatever road we're working on.
Right.
So they can make choices.
Good choices. Always make good choices.
Yes.
So is there anything else you'd like to tell us about MDOT, what's coming, or anything you want to really highlight, even if it's not directly in the township, but in the area nearby?
Well, we have our big projects out on 696 going, and we just had an update this morning, and from our construction engineer, and everything's moving along great. And we're in the next stages of designing for the section of 696 from Lasser to DeQuinder.
Okay.
And that's going to be a little different than the reconstruct we're doing right now from 275 to Lasser. It's going to be more of an inlay where we just take the pavement out. We're going to sweeten up the base. We're going to fix whatever catch basins and sewers need it, and put the pavement back. So that one, won't be as, it's still going to be very inconvenient for motorists. I'm not going to lie. But it's going to be a little bit different feel. A lot of bridge work, in that area. So I'm sure that will affect the commute for a lot of your residents in the next few years. So, but it's going to be great when it's done.
Right. It's one of those things. It's kind of a double-edged sword where I said, if anybody wants to know what it's like to be in my seat, think about this. I said, people call to complain about the roads. And then we get them fixed, and while they're being fixed, they call to complain that the roads are being fixed. So I always say, just remember the end is better. So
yes, I know.
It will be better.
Yeah, we can't win.
No, but I do appreciate, because I know I just personally have felt that when our residents spoke, you listened immediately that day.
For sure.
And we came back and met together. I know it has helped that you and I have a coordination now too, where you'll let us know of projects we end up piggybacking, or even just, most recently of the hours of working on even hours. So I personally appreciate that you are working with us.
I appreciate the open line of communication for sure.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you joining today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you to everyone, and thank you to Lori and the MDOT staff, and we'll see you on the next In Focus. Thanks, and have a great day.